Hi everyone, welcome to Me, My Health and I YouTube channel for another episode of our expert interview series. And today we are going to talk about laughter yoga. This is a subject that has absolutely fascinated me for quite a few years. I think I told you, Joe, about this before. It started with a friend of mine who had gone to a laughter yoga class. She came to see me at my parents, and she did a demonstration of the lawnmower exercise in the hall. And she's like running around the hallway, laughing. So like, ha, 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 ha. And my parents were just absolutely bewildered. And it's just stuck with me for all those years. So I was always looking for a laughter yoga class and couldn't find one. And recently, a friend of mine says she might know someone who was a contact of you. And then I called that person, and that person said, no, I can't do it, but Joe can. And that's how I found you. So, Joe, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolute pleasure.
And so when I attended your class online, it was a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And I had no idea about how big you were in laughter yoga. And so I asked you very boldly for an interview afterwards, and you were very keen, which was great. And since then I've done a bit of research, obviously, to prepare for today, and that's when I found out that you have actually written 2 books.
Correct.
One of them is Awakening the Laughter Buddha Within, and I have it on order. Can't wait to start reading it. And you also have a YouTube channel that's been, here it is, excellent. Yeah, I love it. Starting to laugh already, just by the cover of it. You've also got a YouTube channel that's been going on for 6 years. And you have been hosting a workshop at Glastonbury for 15 years. And that is amazing.
I
would have actually missed you because I went to Glastonbury in 2010, and you must have been there, and I must have walked past the tents. Really disappointed with myself for that. So I read the first chapter of your book because that's available online.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. So I've got I've got a few things that we're going to talk about from there. But I found out a bit more about your journey as a laughing yogi from that, and I did find it fascinating. So can I ask you, rather than me talking to everyone about you and your journey, can I ask you to introduce yourself and talk about how you became a laughing yogi?
Well, the one-line answer is I have no idea.
Okay.
But then the slightly longer answer is, well, actually, since you ask, and I think I refer to this in the book, in Awakening the Laughing Buddha Within. When I was 16, I was being taken to see a vocational guidance counselor, which was what they were called then. And my father asked me, because he was the one who was taking me, he said, well, what do you have any idea what you want to do with your life? And I remember what came out of my mouth was, well, I think I want to help people in some way. And he said, well, you mean you want to be a psychiatrist? I said, no, it's not quite like that. Now, the reason I remember that is because in my recollection, that was the first, if you like, sort of adult thought of my own, the first adult idea of my own that I remember. right? Because I don't think I'd ever really sort of thought about it before at all. Um, but I never forgot that. I never forgot that experience, and it kind of it's been with me sort of all my life, and it's sort of surfaced at various sort of times in my life. So there was, and it's actually, if it's okay to talk about things like the soul's journey, right?
Yes,
Um,
please. Yeah.
there's something about, that there was a recognition in me at a very early age, or a nudge from a very early age. Remember, that's what you're here for.
Mhm.
um, um, and I then kind of didn't particularly sort of consciously remember that for quite some time. Um, um, uh, but when I started actively and consciously working in the field of developing human potential, that has sort of come up, sort of time and time again. The reason I am here, I know the reason I am here, which is to help us, to help us along. There's a lovely Wayne Dyer quote, we're all just walking each other home.
Oh, that is lovely. Yes.
Yeah, and so I'm walking you, and you are walking me, and everybody else is walking, and we're all in this little sort of interconnected sort of web, and that for me is what it's all about. And I happened to come across this thing called laughter yoga. I first read about it actually, in the magazine that really needs to be essential reading for all of us, which is Private Eye. I read about it in the Funny Old World section of Private Eye in 1996. And I still have a copy of that article, because in it was talking about the laughing clubs of India, where this Indian GP had sort of was getting people together just to laugh.
Mm.
The benefits of laughter come from the act of laughter itself, not from jokes or funny or humor or comedy. It's the going sort of ha 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 ha. That's what triggers all the benefits. And part of me thought, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, and and do you want to be
That's,
asked another question? Or yes,
yeah.
exactly.
That's not just in Indian medicine, isn't it? It's in Chinese medicine as well, right?
Well, you see, the archetype of the laughing Buddha, you
Yeah.
know, um, that is an ancient archetype, you
Yeah.
know. So health, abundance, longevity, and happiness, you
Yeah.
know, and really, actually, that's the kind of the pathway that laughter yoga is on.
Yeah.
Because often people, when they first hear about laughter yoga, what they tend to hear is laughter, and they think, oh, ha, 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 ha. Very nice, very jolly, ha, 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 ha. Right? But actually, its purpose is to help us reconnect,
Yes.
reconnect in every way with who we are, and all other sort of all the various sort of parts of our consciousness, and how our consciousness fits in with the sort of human consciousness, and how human consciousness fits in, etc., etc. That's the real purpose of laughter yoga. Otherwise, it's like a laugh size, or a laughter workout, both of which are great, right? But the laughter yoga bit really is about, it's the opening and the expansion, and the reconnection. Um, um, so it is actually, it's a very profound, but it's also a very light, and enjoyable, well-being practice.
So when did you actually became a laughing yogi practitioner? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, laughter yoga. I became a laughter yoga practitioner. I consciously became one in um, I started in 2002.
Okay.
So I had been running laughter workshops before then,
Okay.
because I ran my first laughter workshop in something like 1997.
Yeah.
Okay, um, and it was great. But when I then met Dr. Madan Kataria, who is the founder of the global laughter yoga movement, in 2002. And I started my training and my journey with him. He introduced me to what at that time was the missing piece of my own laughter process, which was connection.
Okay.
And it's the eye, but it was originally expressed in terms of eye contact. So you look at the person, you know, and you share a moment. Of course, it's not about eye contact, because people who are blind can do laughter yoga. It's actually about the connection.
Yes.
But it started for me when I had that was the missing piece of my own sort of laughter jigsaw. So in 2002, that's when I started my own laughter yoga official journey.
So basically in 96 you read the article.
Yeah.
Then very quickly, so you kind of like went straight for it, because you said a year later you started your own laughter workshops, and then about 5 years later you kind of had that one, you know, meeting that took it further into actual yoga.
Yes. What went back in 1996, well, from about 1990, 1993, I think, I had started to teach free your natural voice session.
Oh, yeah.
About voice release. You know, right? Make friends with your voice again and all that. And overtone chanting and all sorts of things that were really big sort of back then. And a key part of voice release and making friends with our voice again is relaxing the body.
Yes.
And a really good way to relax the body is to laugh. And so what used to happen in the sessions would there be lots and lots of natural, spontaneous, genuine laughter, just as a part of the kind of voice release and process, right? Yeah. And so for me, the slightly tricky transition was then running a laughter workshop, because when they're coming to a free or natural voice release session, they weren't expecting to laugh, right?
Yes.
As soon as you say laughter workshop, there's that kind of make me laugh.
Yes.
And that's when the eye contact bit, the connection bit in laughter yoga was so valuable, because there is something very warming, soul touching when we connect with a fellow human being. It invites good-naturedness, it invites open-heartedness, and a natural expression of that is smiling and laughter. Yes. Right? It can naturally happen when we connect in that kind of way.
It's really interesting what you're saying about free your natural voice, because I've been taking singing lessons for about a year now, and actually I will be interviewing my vocal coach on the channel in a few weeks, again, because I want to touch with her some of the benefit that I have received from the lessons that I wasn't expecting. But you're right, like at the beginning of the lesson, she would make me do some very silly things, and and it was all about relaxing. Sometimes she would actually make me do some yoga, but all of the exercising we would do about freeing your voice would actually, sometimes we would end up laughing out loud quite often actually in the lessons. So now I understand where she was going with that, and I hadn't realized it until you just said it. So
yes. One little thing, see, learning to sing and voice release they start in the same place, because they start with a voice, but they are very different.
Yes.
Because voice release is all about letting go and not worrying about the sound that comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Singing, of course, you have to learn a tune. Da, 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 da.
You're going to worry a little about what comes out eventually, but yes, not at the beginning. Okay, brilliant. So let's talk about, and we've touched on it a little bit, but what exactly is laughter yoga? For people who are listening to us who have never heard of it, who haven't had a crazy friend coming into their house to do the lawnmower and all of that kind of stuff. What is laughter yoga?
The easy way to understand laughter yoga is yoga benefits through laughter practices.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, one of the nicest definitions of yoga is that it's not about changing the shape of your body, it's about changing the shape of your life, right? So it's not a physical thing, it's not actually a breath thing, it's a life thing. It's changing how we are. Right? Yeah, and there are many ways of doing this. So you can do this through in yoga. So you can do it through physical postures. All this. You can do it through sort of pranayama and breath, and you can do it through laughter practices. And the key with laughter practices is it's laughter just because, right? Because it's without jokes or humor or comedy. It's a yoga. So in the same way that you take a yogic breath, you can do a yogic laugh. Ha ha. And so in many ways, though, it ties in with things like one of Stephen Covey's habits: begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
Okay. And the end in mind is the yoga benefits, the connection, the coming alive, the expansion. And that can be a really big obstacle for the Western psyche. Because here in the West, and it's the same for me, and really probably almost everybody brought up with the Western imprint, is we are accustomed to laugh because of something funny. Yeah. Because it's a joke. The stimulus for laughter comes from out there somewhere, and it makes us laugh. And the key insight from laughter yoga really is that the benefits come from going ha 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 ha. And it's because it's a practice, right? In the same way that if you're like, jogging is a practice, right? Sometimes you go jogging not because you think, oh my god, I really want to go jogging. You're thinking, Christ, I'm feeling sort of sluggish. I know what I need to do to pick myself up. I need to go jogging, right? And so you do it with that kind of willingness. Yeah. Right? Well, the same applies to laughter yoga practices. When you go ha, 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 with willingness, it's the real thing, right? Yeah. You're doing it for the benefit, right? You're not doing it because you feel like laughing. You're doing it because you know what by doing it you're going to get the benefits. So that same principle that we've just talked about with jogging applies in something like the laughter yoga.
Yeah, and interesting you're comparing it to jogging because I do run a little bit, and when you do go jogging, you you get the benefits for like another day afterwards or two, because that you've got all of that's moving to your body, and you still get the benefit a bit longer. It's not just when you're running. And I have actually found exactly the same with laughter yoga, because when I did that class with you, it was half an hour, okay, and it was brilliant. By the end of it, my cheeks were absolutely, on fire. And I got off and I did a little video for my Facebook community, and I was still laughing. I just couldn't stop. And then for a few days afterwards, obviously, I caught up with, because two of my friends came to that class as well. Yeah. And so when we caught up and spoke, like the minute we got on video, we started laughing. We were still, because the last time we saw each other was in your class when, we were with another 20 people from all over the world. I couldn't believe, like we had people from South America, from Asia, from the US. I was like, how? It was so impressive, so much fun. And yeah, really felt the physical benefit for like 2-3 days. And I was so impressed. I was, yeah.
Well, you touched on something really interesting there, which is that when the three of you first got back together again, what immediately happened was kind of ha ha ha. And that is this process. That is because if you're like the laughing Buddha archetype, right?
Yes.
or joy, right? It is within us.
Yes.
It's not like happiness. It's different from happiness. Happiness can be a slightly ephemeral state, right?
Yeah.
Same as depression can be an ephemeral state. You know, these things come and go, come and go. But joy, there's a really interesting study that I encountered, I read about in the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu's book, The Book of Joy. It's a study that came out of Glasgow University, in which they say there are 4 primary emotions: fear, anger, sadness, and joy. Right? Which means that joy is a primary thing. It is within us.
Yeah.
And so for me, the whole laughter yoga thing is sort of is clearing some of the debris out of the way, so that the joy, we reconnect with the joy. And what you said about when the 3 of you got together again, you just laugh. A number of people have said that to me after sessions. You know, I was at the World Yoga Festival last year, right? And I had an email from someone afterwards who said that every time they bumped into other people from the workshop, they just laughed. And it's joyous. It is a naturally joyous thing, and anything that is naturally joyous that brings us in, it just energizes and heals. Therefore, our whole life. It just infuses our whole being with that energy.
Yeah, I think the when you see specific people that you last saw in the workshop or in the class, it's very interesting because it's a little bit like an anchor in NLP. You know, it's like you've anchored that person or with you. Every time I speak to you, you know, I want to laugh.
We have a giggle.
Exactly, and your laugh is so communicative as well. So it is brilliant. I was actually, you know, I was preparing today, and I was reading your book, and I was doing the exercise, you know, as you go along, and so I was laughing like for 2 hours before, you know, talking to you when I was preparing, because I was really getting in the mood, and you know, just the thought. So that's great.
The thing is that the knack is, you see, and this is, it's a basic life skill that actually we're all really good at, but we don't necessarily appreciate how good we are at it. And the knack is doing it when we don't feel like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, just to remind us how good we are at this already, you know, on the whole, every day we get up.
Yes.
Whether we feel like it or not, we get up, because that's life. You know,
although with lockdown, you know, maybe there's some exceptions, but
and sometimes though, you have to go out and do the shopping. Well, you just have to do it. You have to prepare the meal for your kids. Well, it's just something you have to do, and so you do it, right? So we are actually already incredibly good. We have the model in our consciousness to do things that we don't want to do.
Absolutely.
Right? And therefore, the knack is to do them willingly.
Yes.
When we do them with resistance, and we've all done stuff with resistance, you know, life is miserable. It's we grumble and we groan, and it's just an unpleasant experience for us and everyone around us. So the knack is doing everything with as much willingness as we possibly can.
Yeah, and so I'm glad you said that, because so I coach people who have depression, and the first thing I teach them is we create what I call the emergency checklist. And so the concept of the emergency checklist is that they have a go-to to-do list for the day they have a really bad day. So the idea is, you know, you suddenly something happens, because it's life, and you feel really down.
Yeah.
The idea of the emergency checklist is that you've got things that you can do on that day to bring yourself back up.
Lovely.
And you do them as long as you need to get you back up. So sometimes, depending on what's happened, it can take you 2 hours or it can take you a week, you know.
Yes.
But the idea is that you train yourself to bring
Yes.
yourself back up. And so, you know, on my list, the first thing I do is I go for a run, you know, if that happens, because it moves my body, it, you know, it gives me a lot of all of the right chemicals, all the rest of it. Then the second thing is I will call someone that I choose very carefully who I call. I call a person who is going to be supportive,
Yeah.
who is going to make me laugh, actually. Okay?
Boom.
There we go. And then the third thing is I watch a comedy.
Yes, 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 yes.
Because it's all about it's about reversing the sadness and the wanting to cry through, you know, chemicals and through, you know, bringing yourself up. And so the list goes on, you know, it's about healthy food, avoid alcohol, avoid anything that is depressant. But the thing is, by the movie, I'm usually fine, you know. So for me, it's like a 3-hour maximum kind of, but I've been practicing this for years, okay?
Yes.
So I think now I might actually put the laughter yoga second after the run, because it's just felt like, you know, you get there straight away. But yeah, so it's exactly the same idea that people have got a lot more control about their state than they know. And unless they've gone to see, you know, Tony Robbins and spent 3 days, 4 days learning about how to change their state, most people don't know that. And they just feel, oh, I have depression, it's in me, I'm going to be, you know, miserable for the rest of my life, and there's nothing I can do about it except taking medication and speaking to a therapist. And that's my, you know, my mission is to kind of wake people up and tell them, actually, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
For me, the key starting point, and I was actually talking with someone about this afternoon, that the key starting point, the way in to laughter yoga and everything that it offers is movement.
Yes.
And it's all to do with embodiment and awareness of our embodiment. And the easy way to become aware of that is to move.
Yeah.
Is to move. And what I find is that, you know, sometimes I say to people, well, just move. The worst thing we can do when we're feeling, you know, like that is to be, you know, stationary, head down, slumped. You know, that's kind of just reinforcing all the negatives.
Yeah.
But as soon as we start to move, particularly, you know, you probably know the talk by Amy Cuddy on the TED Talk, power postures. You know,
Absolutely. Biofeedback.
This, you know,
Superwoman. I love that one.
the what?
The Superwoman stance. That
Yes.
video, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
all these things, you don't even need to go out running, right? Yeah, you can actually sort of do them. You can do them while still sitting in your chair. You can do that, or you can do that. But like you, I find that the first step is just movement and embodiment.
Yeah.
Just move. And then because by the time we have by the time we move, we've actually already gone through a process. Because behind the movement is the decision, the intention. So we have already, you know, we have gone through where we're thinking, well, you know, this is pretty rotten. What can I do about it? Yeah, and as soon as we're in that process, we've already taken an important step, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the and then the movement that, you know, so the movement can flow very easily from the decision to do something about the mood we're in, the state we're in.
Yeah.
So yes, so movement, absolutely.
So that brings us nicely to my next question, which we've touched on already, but I want to go deeper because when I read the extract from your book,
Yeah.
I realized that you and I have something in common, like, you know, around depression and the experience that we've had.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you is, you know, what would you say to, you know, the version of yourself who was feeling really, really down and really low, who frankly, who was feeling suicidal, you know, and if that person, that version of yourself, what would you say to them now with regard to laughter yoga and how that can help him to get out of that? What would you say?
Well, I'm not sure.
I'm guessing,
Probably.
and I've made the assumption that you weren't a laughing yogi at the time this happened.
Correct. No, so when that's right. So when I tried very hard to take my own life, right? and, and I either failed at succeeding, or I succeeded at failing, you know. Anyway, here we are.
Yes, thank God for that.
um, uh, Actually, I think what I would say to what would have been most helpful for me back then was just take one more breath.
Yeah.
Just one more breath, you know. For me, I would have needed something practical to do, right?
Yes.
And just one more breath. That's what I would. I would then sort of build on that, saying, you know, it might feel like the end of the world, but maybe, you know, just take one more breath. Because as soon as you're taking one more breath, you've realized that what you thought was the end of the world isn't the end of the world, because you're taking one more breath.
Yeah.
And so, although it can sound incredibly inconsequential, it can be an enormous step. Just take one more breath, you know. And there is that lovely quotation from Winston Churchill, you know, who had his black dog, you know, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Yes.
So there is something about just somehow just keeping on, take that next step, take that next breath, just, and just, you know, just, and for those of us who hit dark places sort of more than once, there can, by the time you're done it a few times, there can be a recognition in our consciousness, can there not? Oh, I'm here again. Yeah. You know, going back to my very first time, that wouldn't have applied, because that was the first time. You know, so, you know, when you're here again, Milo, I've never been here before. Just take one more breath.
Yeah.
Right? But at subsequent times when I've had these, you know, sort of major crises in my life, I am aware that there's part of my consciousness that said, no, here you are again. Yeah. And that can be really helpful. It can be really optimistic. It can be really hopeful, because it just reminds us that we've been here before.
Yeah. And that we have survived.
And I've survived, and here I am. You know, here I am. Yeah. And the other thing, which can be hard to remember at the time, it's much easier to remember afterwards, is that actually we already have all the tools we need to help us take our next step.
Yeah.
Although we might need to refine and practice and, you know, and bring on board all kinds of new stuff, but at any moment, every moment, we have exactly the tools we need to take our next step.
Yeah.
So even when we're in the depths of the pit, we actually have the tools we need to take our next breath. And you know, and for me, that's an incredibly powerfully sort of hopeful and optimistic message. So you know,
absolutely. I think I obviously can relate to that very much. I think what I've been to that place a few times as well, and obviously, like you, the first time I didn't know better. the second time, I had a voice in my head, but it was slightly different. And it was more about the people around me and the knowledge of the pain that I would cause, and that was, you know, very different. But after that, after those two times, I've never tried again. But even though I got to that place again, that really dark place, but then the voice would be, no, actually, you can do something else. You can change the story. You can change the narrative. You have been better. And especially the last time, which I really didn't see coming, which was after years of being really well. And then, you know, and then I went there again. And there was this one day where I was there. I was at the top of a building. All I had to do was take one step. And yeah. I had that voice in my head that said, actually, give it one more day. Just one more day. It can get better. Give it one more day. And I'm really glad I did. And I've never went back to that place again. But I think it's that knowledge of when you are in pain, just remember that, as you said, especially if it's happened before, that you can come out, you can come back, you can move forward again. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. That's very.
I think on behalf of us all, I'm very glad when you were standing on the edge, you didn't take one step forward and you took one step back.
Yes. I took one more step, but the right way.
Yes, the right way. Yes, the right way.
Absolutely.
I mean, the whole point of all this, can I just say, because is that we're all going to have hard times.
Yes.
Hard times, you know, we are all going to bleed, right? We're all going to, things are going to hurt, right? Yeah. We are all going to experience sort of these moments of real pain in our life, okay? And that's just part of being alive, right? Yeah. And what is helpful for us, and I'm sure you agree, is not making a story out of it, not making a big mental construct out of it, right? Okay, I'm feeling a bit rubbish. That hurts. Okay, and just kind of letting that energetic impulse, right?
Yeah.
Or letting that thought, which is also just a different type of energetic impulse, pass, and just be in the moment. Be in the moment, because when we are in the moment, then we're not in our story. We are not in our mental construct because we're in the moment. And if you don't know what that means, then you haven't yet learned to be in the moment, which is fantastic, because learning to be in the moment is the most wonderfully liberating experience. When we have learned to be in the moment, we know the difference between being in the moment and being in our head. And laughter yoga is a really good way of movement through the breath, through the kind of ha 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 ha. Because when we start to laugh in that way, all our attention comes into the moment. Yeah. It all comes into the moment. Therefore, we can all get better. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, now yes.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. We're back now.
Yeah. So we can all get better. We can all train ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And the more we practice, right,
yeah.
joyfully, the more we take charge of our own consciousness, right? Yeah. And realizing that we can take charge of our own consciousness, that is an enormous step.
Yeah.
Realizing that we have, you know, the whole that Viktor Frankl quote, you know, his great realization in the concentration camps was that he had the one final human freedom, the freedom to choose how to respond to any given set of circumstances. Now, one of the things about laughter yoga, you see, is that it's choosing to be joyful.
Yes.
Which is why which is why I love it, which is why it's so great, because it's choosing to bring joy into
Absolutely.
our consciousness at any moment we choose.
Yes, and I think that's exactly. Thank you so much for saying that, because that is the point. It is about choice, and I think a lot of people, when they are in that pain, they don't realize that they have a choice not to
Yeah.
be. And I know a lot of people right now who would fight me very hard on that statement. But this, I really truly believe that you have got a choice. You may not have a choice on how you feel in the moment, but you have a choice on what you can do to change that state and to come out of it. So what I was thinking was, this, I think, could be a very good time to show people how it's done. So we do a very quick demonstration of laughter yoga.
I forgot that was
I
coming,
promise
you know.
this to some people, they are expecting it. We have to do it.
Okay, so there's a little process
Yes.
that I use in every single session I do, whether it's a one-to-one or whether it's a festival or a big conference, and it's MBS, okay? And M stands for move. Move.
Okay.
So let's just move. Just start to move. Just start. And in laughter yoga, it is really great to be light-hearted and playful. Okay.
Okay.
So just fine. And and I have a great teacher. I have a number of great teachers. Um, um, Probably my best teachers tend to be about sort of 2 or 3 years old.
Okay. Yeah. Your granddaughter. I've seen those videos. Yeah.
Because at that age, they are moving all the time. They are active all the time. They are fully engaged with life. They are naturally playful and curious. So just, if it helps, just sort of bring that image to mind, just moving sort of freely.
Yeah. Imagine that I am free. Okay. Yeah.
And it can be really good. It can be really good, in particular, to move the shoulders. Okay.
Yeah.
And backward shoulder rolls. Okay. And the B in MBS stands for breathing. Okay. So breathe and move. So move and breathe. And the S stands for smile. Smile. Now, an easy way to activate the smile is just to start really enjoying what we're doing. Okay. Because as soon as we start to enjoy, then then a natural expression of enjoyment is the smile. Okay.
Okay.
And then just as I mentioned in my second book, which is Laughter, Yoga and Happiness, give ourselves permission to enjoy. So as we're doing this, give ourselves permission to enjoy. Okay.
I like that. Okay. Yeah.
And then, since you talked about the Superwoman pose, which is sort of like that, okay, that can be really good. But then to just sort of bring your arms up a little bit like that.
I know where this is going.
And then you can become a super chicken.
I can't believe I'm doing the chicken on my YouTube channel.
So every time now you see sort of Superwoman, you'll think,
yeah, I'm gonna go like that. And yes.
But there is.
It works so good. Yeah, it works really well. I love it. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yeah. Yeah. So
There's
for
one
people watching, imagine that for 25 minutes and how much, that's why my face was hurting afterwards. Like it was good. Brilliant.
thing is, okay, so what happens, you see, on the back of all this, um,
Yes.
we open up, we breathe more deeply, the blah, 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 but also we start to connect with joy. Something gets activated. A connection gets activated, or and something gets released.
Yes.
And the joy suddenly has space to expand, and
Yeah.
and it's great. And the thing is, it's a practice. So
Yes.
the more we do it, the better it works. It's not like driving a car. When you do it first time, we're a bit, but after a while, we can just do it. We can just do it.
Yeah.
As
Absolutely. And the feeling is great. Like, right now, I just feel, obviously, I was very much enjoying the conversations that we're having, but it just brings it up to another level. You can feel it in your body.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is good. So practice. So I hope that people watching this at home have been doing it together with us, because that is so good. So there is one aspect we haven't touched on, which I wanted to bring up, because I know some of the people who follow me are very interested in science,
Yep.
because I've read some really interesting books on neuroscience, the neuroscience of depression, and what's happening in your brain from a chemistry point of view.
Yep.
And what I was, and one thing that I think is very relevant to this is when you're laughing, you are releasing, I think it's endorphin, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
And so that's part of why this is good when you're feeling down. This is a very good exercise, because it's not just reversing the physical aspect of, what's happening to your face and your body. And so you've got the biofeedback, and you've got the endorphin as well.
Yes. You get a dose.
Yeah.
You get a dose of laughter, and D stands for dopamine.
Yes.
Right? O is oxytocin, S is serotonin, and E is endorphins.
Yeah.
And that you get the whole, you get that chemical cocktail. That is what is activated.
All of them. Brilliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And dopamine is anticipation, oxytocin is cuddle, and serotonin is for happiness, and endorphins is pain relief.
Yeah.
So this whole thing, and so the thing is, although so we do this, and psychologically and emotionally we feel better. But if our blood was tested, we would start to find increased levels of those hormones. So it's not just something. It's not just a figment of our mind or our imagination. It's actually measurable in terms of hard science. You see.
Yes, and the physical.
That could be reassuring.
Yeah, which is brilliant, you see, because it's actually 4 chemicals, and so there's eight chemicals that got involved when you're feeling depressed, and 6 of them you can actually rebalance through exercising. So that's why I go for a run first, because I know that there's the movement, but there's all the chemicals coming back up. So that's actually making laughter the second best remedy to depression after running, because that you're hitting 4 chemicals in one go, which I don't think anything else does. So so far from my research, okay, I'm not a neuroscientist, everybody knows that. But yeah, so that's brilliant. So right, so I think that's kind of bringing us quite gently towards the end of this interview.
Very.
What I wanted to say is, as usual, for people who are interested in learning more about laughter yoga, or about the Bristol Laughing Club, where can they go? What's next? And obviously we'll put the links below.
Probably the easiest website to go to is bristollaughterclub.com.
Okay.
So Bristol Laughter, so double L, because on there that all the Zoom links, because there are all kinds of sort of sessions. There's a link for the book. You can get sort of the book through that. You can listen to, also you can listen to an excerpt, because I read sort of part of a chapter, so you can actually sort of listen to it.
Yes.
So that is a good go-to place.
Yeah.
And through that, now you can then head off into Instagram, right? Because I post exercises there, and sort of and the whole, as you mentioned, sort of the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So if people come to your website, the Bristol Laughing Club, Bristol Laughter Club, that's where they can find the information to sign up to your free classes.
Yes.
But also, so if people want to do a bit more, because you've mentioned to me that you have a 3-hour course.
Yes.
Times 1 hour.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm interested.
That'd be great. I know. Okay. We need the benefits of laughter yoga now. Right. I mean, if there's ever a time when laughter yoga has been needed, it's now. And the 3-hour course, right? It's either 3 1 hours, or it can be 1 or 2.5 hour session. It introduces a practical do-it-at-home laughter yoga routine, right? Based on move, breathe, and smile, right? Yeah. But it is designed for us to be able to do on our own, right? Yeah. At home, to start building all the laughter yoga benefits into our life now. Yeah. And in all the years now, because I've been in the field of the laughter material for whatever it is, or 20-something years. What I have found is this model. It's simple, right? It's easy to learn, right? And it works, obviously, and it's fun. It's actually fun, and it's enjoyable. So it's not a difficult thing we have to learn, right? And following on from that, you see, when we sort of we get the basic approach, we can then all find our own ways of building it into our day-to-day life. So it's not an additional thing we need to find time to do in our life, right? We build this approach into our own day-to-day activities, right? So I talk a lot about, the amount of the number of things we can be doing while we're cleaning our teeth, for example. We can be smiling. We can be moving a bit, right? We can be aware of our breathing, right? So all these things are helping us really be in the moment and not in our head, right? And so so this course, it's designed to be practical, obviously, easy to learn, user-friendly, and it doesn't require additional time in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, I love it. Brilliant. Well, Joe, thank you so much for today. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the moment. Thank you so much for the demonstration. I've got I got my dose a little bit for the day. I might try the chicken again later. But yeah, no, thank you so much.
It's been lovely. It's been really, really, really so interesting talking with you, because this kind of shared journey, and kind of knowing that we know sort of those places in life, and knowing that we can come out of them and be in kind of these places, it's lovely. So it's been lovely talking with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Right. Everyone, I will put all the links below the video as usual. And of course, if you want to watch other videos, or if you want to subscribe, you've got all the buttons on the screen. So go for it. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.